Is everything set now? Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Hope I am audible to everyone. Is everybody able to hear me? Alright, so let's get started. This is the first in the series of webinars which would assist NET-JRF aspirants to clear their NET exams, and also it would assist in their preparations. Today we will be dealing with research aptitude and reasoning. So first session will be about research aptitude. So let's get started right away. The first question that needs to be answered is, what is research? Research is nothing but a scientific investigation or search for knowledge. Or in simple terms, you could say that research is a systematic approach to finding answers to a number of questions. And according to Lerner's Dictionary of English, research is defined as a careful investigation or inquiry, especially through search for new facts in any branch of knowledge. As we all know, the nomenclature is generally divided as re and search, where re means again and search is you search for new facts and knowledge. Moving on to the next is objectives of research. The objectives of research are always in line with the different types of research. For example, if I say a research aims at finding out causal relationships, then it means that the research is a causal research. And again, If I say that a research aims at finding out market trends or the psychology behind people buying few products and all that, that comes under market research. So, generally or speaking in broader terms, the objectives of research are as follows. Research helps in gaining new insights, finding out characteristics of objects and individuals, finding market trends, solving specific problems in the society, finding out causal relationships, and also to prove and disprove with an existing idea or theory. The next is characteristics of research. So, what makes something research? You call something research when it is scientific. Scientific meaning to say that there is a systematic process or a step-by-step process which is carried out. The second is validity. You say a research is valid when the results are what the research aimed at. Or in simple terms, you could say that when a research aims at finding out or a research finds out what it aims to is called as validity. For example, if I aim at finding out the impact of diabetes in the younger lot or in the younger generation, then my results should be in accordance with the objectives which I have decided. So, that is called as validity. Moving on to the next is reliability. Reliability is when the results are constant irrespective of the researcher. Supposing if I research a particular research problem today and I get few results, the results should be the same as it would be if another person were to do the same research. Alright. The next is generalizability. Generalizability is how much, it refers to the extent to which the results can be generalized. Just a minute. Yeah, sorry about that. But moving on, generalizability is the extent to which you can generalize your results. Supposing if I am working with a particular group of people in mind, say I am working based on the low income group, or I am working on the low income group or their lifestyle or anything like that, my results should be generalizable to all people belonging to the low income group. Alright. The next is objectivity. Objectivity is something that is unbiased. It is important for research to be unbiased. The next is accuracy. Accuracy is the degree of correctness. It is necessary that research is accurate. The last is empirical. Empirical is anything that can be tested and verified. And as we all know, research is something, as I already told you in case of reliability, research is something that needs to be tested and verified. Therefore, empiricality is also an important characteristic of research. Moving on to the characteristics of a researcher, what makes a person a researcher? A researcher is a person who has well cultivated curiosity, meaning to say that he is inquisitive but in the right sense. Alright. The next is patience and tenacity. It is important for a researcher to be patient and also perceiving at the same time. I mean to say that research, as we all know, is quite a lengthy process for say about 4 years or 5 years. It is important that the researcher has the same amount of perseverance to continue to go on with the same research problem till the end. Alright. And the next is genuine interest. By genuine interest, we also mean to say that the interest is supposed to be sustained, and also everybody needs a lot of common sense. In fact, everybody needs, but in case of a researcher, it is needed in larger amounts. So, a good ideas with a lot of common sense is also a requirement or an attribute of a researcher, and also a sense of social responsibility. So, why do we need social responsibility? As we all know, ethics are an important and an integral part of research. For any researcher to be ethical, it is also required that the researcher has some sense of social responsibility. This is just so that the researcher does not manipulate or tamper the results. Alright. Moving on, the types of research. Up on your slide is a link to a YouTube video which we have uploaded recently. It is on the types of research. But however, I insist, I suggest that you watch the video, but I also would like to give a brief outline of each of the research types in a line or two. The first is descriptive research. Descriptive research are nothing but fact-finding surveys. For example, I am a researcher and I want to find out what is the soap that people buy the most? And probably I'll have a questionnaire which asks you, what soap do you use? So there will be people who say, might be 10 people use Dettol, 10 people use Lifebuoy, 10 people use Hammam or anything like that. So these researches are basically fact-finding researches. You just tend to find out how much or what is the present state. Okay, so all fact-finding surveys are descriptive in nature. The next, the opposite of descriptive research is analytic research. Analytic research is when you have a problem in hand and you find solutions to those problems by way of analysis. The next is qualitative research. Qualitative research is something that aims at finding out the quality, or rather you can say that it is non-numeric. For example, if I say, why do people buy a particular brand of soap? Then that will seek responses in the form of, this is a soap that lathers well, or this is a soap that kills germs and all that. So that is qualitative in nature. On the other hand, you have quantitative research. This is numeric data. It is in the form of numbers. For example, now taking the same example means I just want you to understand that the same type of research question or a research based on a particular problem can be both qualitative and quantitative at the same time. So the same thing can be quantitative when I ask how many people use Lifebuoy, how many people use Dettol and all that. So that is in the form of numbers. That is quantitative research. However, in the recent past, researchers have actually clubbed both. For some point of time, a research can be qualitative and then it can become quantitative. So that is what is called as a mixed methods research. Alright, and this whole process of including both the qualitative and the quantitative aspect is called as triangulation. This is an important question, so you can make a note of it. The next is fundamental research. Fundamental research is also called as basic research. Fundamental research is when you are developing a theory of your own. For example, when Newton found out that when an apple drops down, it is based on the law of gravity. At that time, that was an example of a fundamental research because it was the development of a new theory or a concept. Alright, the next is applied research. For example, if I have to apply the same concept of Newton and find out why a lift that goes down and that comes down, that goes up and that comes down, why is there a change in the force and the workload and all that, that becomes applied research because you're using Newton's law of gravitation to explain the working of a lift. Alright. So, when concepts are applied to solve present day problems, then it is called as applied research. The next is conceptual research. Conceptual research, as you can understand from the name, conceptual research is based on concepts or ideas. Okay. The next is experimental research. Experimental research, I'll start by giving you an example. Supposing if you are a researcher and you want to find out if storytelling has a positive impact on the understanding, or if you want to find out if it improves the analytical skills. So this is your research problem, research question. Does storytelling enhance the analytical skills? So if it were an experimental research design, what the researcher is supposed to do is divide the sample into two groups, the experimental group and the control group. The intervention of the researcher in the form of using stories in the classroom is actually implemented in the experimental group and not in the control group. Control group is as normal as always. But the researcher's intervention takes place in the experimental group. And this intervention is measured as against the control group. And when you compare these two, it is said that you will find a difference in the experimental group. If the difference is positive, then it says that it has a positive impact. If it is negative, then it has a negative impact. So, when the sample is divided into two groups and when there is the intervention of the researcher in the experimental group, that is called as experimental research. You can actually watch the video because there are a lot of types of experimental research too, like quasi-experiment, pre-experiment and all that. I have discussed them in the video. Now, moving forward, what are the types of research? Other general types of research. Now, the first classification is based on time period. Based on time period, you can divide them as longitudinal research and cross-sectional research. For example, if a particular research runs over several time periods, for example, say 1 year or 1.5 years, then it is longitudinal in nature. For example, if I want to find out the teaching methods used in Tamil Nadu, alright. It means to say that a teaching method that is used today will differ from one that was used yesterday and the one that will be used tomorrow. So, it is important for the researcher to find out the teaching methods that have been used over a long period of time. So, this makes it longitudinal, alright. When it takes place over a longer period of time, then it is called as longitudinal research. The next is cross-sectional research. Cross-sectional research is like what we have learned in botany and zoology. You take a potato or a tomato and then you divide it, and then that is called as a cross-section. So, a cross-sectional research is done only for a single time period. It is very confined, right? It is confined to one particular time period. For example, does COVID-19 affect older people more than the younger lot? Now, assuming that COVID-19 will not last for long, and that is also a hope for all of us, COVID-19 is a problem that will exist probably for say 1 month or 2 months, hopefully even 4 weeks, alright. So, this is cross-sectional because it is based only on a small time period, alright. It is based on a smaller time period, so that makes the difference between longitudinal and cross-sectional research. Longitudinal research is for a longer period of time and cross-sectional research is for a shorter period of time, say 2 months or 3 months, alright.
Applied and conceptual research again, please. Conceptual is more like theoretical.
I see a lot of you coming up with doubts. It is actually very good, but then we'll finish the whole thing and then we've picked up questions actually. We'll try and answer these questions by the end of the session, alright. So, moving on, the next is types of research based on the environment. Based on the environment, you can actually classify them as field research and laboratory research. Field research is also called as field work, like you get into the fields, that is to say that you work not in the lab or in a confined place, but in the actual setting where the problem is. For example, if a researcher wants to learn more about tribal languages, it means that the researcher will have to stay with the tribal people in order to understand their language, in order to learn more about their language. Probably there is a relationship between the language and the culture. So, everything can be understood well only when the researcher stays with the tribal people. So, therefore, a field study is of more importance when you are learning tribal languages or a particular culture or something like that. In that case, it is called as a field research. So, it most often involves participant observation because it tends to be ethnographic in nature too, alright. The next is laboratory research. Laboratory research is something that takes place in a controlled environment. For example, imagine tomorrow India comes up with a vaccine for COVID-19, fingers crossed, hope that happens. So, a vaccine can be found out only in controlled settings, it happens only in the laboratory, it does not happen in the open space, alright. So, that is an example of a laboratory research. Now, moving on to more common types of research, the first is clinical research. Clinical research, as the name signifies, it takes place in the field of healthcare services. Now, if for example, you have to find out the symptoms, the prevention of a particular disease, the treatment of a disease, then all that comes under clinical research. The next is exploratory research. Exploratory research is developing a hypothesis rather than testing a hypothesis. Now, let me explain. Exploratory, as the name signifies, you are exploring something. There's not something that you are going to come up with or a solution to a problem or something like that. You are just going to explore what actually exists. Now, the example which is up on your slide, what are the assessment methods followed in India? This is exploratory in nature simply because you are just going to find out what are the assessment systems which are followed in India, or what are the assessment methods that are in place in India. That's all. Alright. So, that research is called as exploratory research, where you only develop a hypothesis and it is not hypothesis testing, because you are not going to find out if using technology is going to be helpful in the class. You are just going to find out if technology is being used in the class. Alright. The next is historical research. Historical research deals with past events. Okay. It deals with history. So, for example, research on civilizations, the Roman civilization, the Harappan civilization, all that comes under historical research. The next is philosophical research. Philosophical research is qualitative in nature, alright, because you are analyzing philosophical concepts. For example, if somebody comes up with a new understanding of Socrates, then that is philosophical in nature. The next is ethnographic research. As I already told you, field research tends to be ethnographic in nature. Ethnographic research, it comes from the term ethnography, the study of culture and the way people live. So, ethnographic research deals with the process of studying and describing culture. You describe culture. For example, research on tribal people, as I already told you, you have to find out the nuances of culture. Why do people behave in a certain way? Is it their culture? Alright? So, such things will have to be answered. So, that is ethnographic in nature. Or even for that matter, students from the low income group, do they perform well? Then in that case, you will have to find out the background of the learner. Then even that is ethnographic in nature. The next is case study research. Now, the term case is very prevalent, especially in the present scenario. Each day we increase the number of cases rising or decreasing or something like that. So, a case is a term that is most often used in the field of medicine, right? So, a case study is when you pick up a particular case, right? A case is just one thing. You pick up that particular case and you give a detailed account of one or more cases, and that is called as case study research. For example, I am a researcher, I am interested in the behavior of teenagers. So, I will pick up 2 to 3 teenagers and then find out, why do these people behave like this, or do all teenagers behave like this? What are the common behaviors? What are the traits? So, all that comes under case study research. The next is market research. As I told you in the beginning, it deals with market trends, finding out market trends, or the purchasing policies, producing and selling of products, everything. Alright. Next is operations research. Operations research is when you use mathematical and logical techniques to find solutions. For example, there are business problems. For example, profit maximization, cost maximization. You want to maximize your profit. At that time, there are few mathematical and logical operations that are to be in place for you to find out. Alright, that is called as operations research. The next is causal comparative research. This is a very important type of research as far as the NTA NET examination is concerned, because there could be a question on this. So, it's causal and comparative at the same time, which means to say that you are finding out the cause, alright. There are two things, you are finding out the cause and also comparing both. Alright, what causes what, and also comparison. That is what is there on the definition up on your slides now. Aims at determining the cause or the consequences of differences that exist. There are two things, differences exist between those two things. What are those differences? How do those differences affect each other? How different are they? So, that is called as causal comparative research. The example which is there, relationship between the number of years of experience and job satisfaction. Supposing if I am a researcher and if I have to say that people with higher number of years of experience are more satisfied with their jobs, then it is causal, meaning to say that your number of years of experience, they affect the job satisfaction or the amount of your satisfaction. And also, job satisfaction can be compared to be directly proportional with the number of years of experience. Alright. The next is a very important type of research, because questions have been asked a number of times based on action research in your NET exam question papers. Action research, it is a term that was coined by Kent Levin. There is action taking place in action research. Alright. It is meant to solve existing problems. So, these are immediate solutions to existing problems. And action research is highly contextualized. Okay. It takes place in a particular context. And also it has a predefined process. To be very careful with the process, because the process has been asked umpteen number of times. And an example for action research is on your slide right now. Action research for doing away with the habit of plagiarism on the part of the researcher, or how do researchers overcome plagiarism, can be done as an action research, because you will be picking up 10 to 15 research scholars working on them, and that is an action research. And action research is collaborative in nature, meaning to say that I am a teacher, I face a problem in my class, there is another teacher in the adjacent classroom, both of us face the same problem. So, both of us work in collaboration to solve a particular problem, then that is called as action research. Alright. Now, you have to be very careful with the diagram. In fact, it's good that you remember it, because that might be a question, and it has been a question earlier also. So, action research and the steps of action research. The first thing in any research is generally to identify the problem. You just identify what is the problem, what am I going to work on. The next is devise a plan. So, now that you have devised your problem, I mean you have identified your problem, you have to devise a plan. What is my plan of action? So, you devise a plan and then act to implement your plan. You have a plan in place. Now, you have to work out the plan, you have to implement the plan. So, that is the next step. After the implementation, there is a lot of data that you collect. You need to analyze all the data, and then finally you have to reflect. Alright. So, this is a process where you plan, act, observe and reflect. Alright. You can remember it using PAOR or something like that, it is up to you. Now, moving on to the next lot. So far so good, we have actually completed the types of research, right? Although in brief, it should be clear by now. The next is research methods and research methodology, the difference between them, and we will be moving into the research process. So, research methods, what are research methods? Research methods are techniques which are used by the researcher to conduct research, right? So, research methods involve techniques. So, what is research methodology? Research methodology is the way of systematically solving a research problem. You have a problem in hand. What are the various steps you use to solve a particular problem is what constitutes the methodology. Alright. So, you have methodology at the top, and then you have methods, and methods, under methods you have a lot of techniques. Alright. Okay. So, up on your slide now is a question which I would like all of you to try and answer. It is, dash research is intended to determine the cause or of the consequences of differences among groups of people. Action research, experimental research, causal comparative research, case study research. Alright, try and answer these questions. Yeah, Manjushri, you are the first one to come up with the correct answer. The answer is actually causal comparative research. The most important terms here are cause, consequences and differences. Alright, as I already told you, causes, there are two causes, or there are two things which act upon each other, and there are also differences among these two groups. Alright, okay. Yeah, I see a lot of you coming up with the correct answers. The next is research process. Alright. Now, the flow chart which is up on your screen now is from Kothari's book on research methodology. I thought that this would be helpful in remembering all the stages of research, because most often, most of the question papers have questions asking the respondents to arrange these steps in order. Alright. So, the first is defining research problem, review of literature, formulate hypothesis, and then research design, collection of data, analysis of data, interpretation and reporting of the results. Let us see one by one. First is formulating the research problem. So, research problem is something that is a difficulty in any context which the researcher finds it difficult. Alright. The researcher, by way of observation, finds out that there are problems existing in various aspects or various walks of life. That, if researchable, is a research problem. Alright. Research problem can generally be divided into two types. The first, it relates to the states of nature. Why is it so? How is it? All those things are the first category. It relates to the states of nature. The second relates to the relationship between the variables. There are two things. For example, eating junk food and obesity. Does eating junk food lead to obesity? You are comparing both the variables. You are finding out the relationship between both the variables. Alright. So, that could be the second type. Now, there are few things which a researcher has to keep in mind while formulating the research problem. One thing is that the subject shouldn't be overdone. People who have worked a lot, I mean, the subject shouldn't be something that people have overdone, okay. And then avoid choice of any controversial subject. Avoiding controversial subjects is good anyways. So same is the case with research too. The next is too vague, too broad and too narrow problems are to be avoided. For example, I want to find out the condition of schools in India. That is too broad a topic to be researched in say 5 years or 4 years. So it shouldn't be too broad. And also the research question is too vague. Now what is the condition of schools in India? It is too vague because in India, which part of India, northern India, southern India, school level, which school level, middle school level, kindergarten, or what are you talking about? The next, it shouldn't be too narrow. Like if I say I am going to research on the condition of schools in my area, alright, say Adyar or Gindi or something like that. It is a very small place, okay. So a research problem should not be too broad, too vague or too narrow. The next is review of literature. Literature is everything that has been done on your particular topic of research. So review of literature is studying everything and then applying your brains on the literature that is available to find out a research gap. So this review of literature can be done in two parts. The first is conceptual review of literature and empirical review of literature. Conceptual review of literature is reviewing all concepts and theories that exist related to your research. For example, if I have to say, I will pick up the same example which I told you earlier. The impact of junk food on the weight, or the impact of eating junk food on the physical fitness of a person. All literature that regards to the physical fitness of a person, junk food, the impacts of junk food, everything will come under the conceptual review of literature. Supposing if a person like me has already done research on the impact of junk food and physical fitness, then that is called as empirical research. Imagine he or she has already selected a sample, worked on them for quite some time and then arrived at results. It is an already worked piece of research. That is called as an empirical review of literature. Alright. So this deals with concepts, and empirical review of literature deals with literature that has already been done, or work that has already been done in the same field. Alright. Next is formulation of hypothesis. So what is hypothesis? Hypothesis is nothing but a tentative assumption about the expected outcome of research. So this might be my outcome. So every time we do something, we assume that this will happen. So that assumption is called as hypothesis, or rather it is a logical guess. Supposing if I work on junk food and obesity, my hypothesis will be eating junk food leads to obesity. Alright, that is a logical guess. Or it could be eating junk food does not lead to obesity. That could also be an assumption. Now, hypothesis is divided into two types: alternate hypothesis and null hypothesis. When I say, or when I predict a negative impact, if I say no, this will not have an impact, then that is called as the null hypothesis. When I predict anything else, a positive impact or something, then that is called as the alternate hypothesis. I will tell you why it is like that. It is important that researchers always neglect the null hypothesis. Alright, good researchers neglect the null hypothesis. Therefore, it is important that I assume that eating junk food will not lead to obesity, which I actually know that it will. So when I assume that it won't, then it is a null hypothesis that will eventually get rejected. Alright, and also the hypothesis is supposed to be specific and limited. Now I can't just go about saying eating junk food will lead to a lot of obesity. Obesity in whom? In children, in adults, in middle-aged people? In that way, in that sense, a hypothesis is supposed to be specific and also limited. Now why do you need a hypothesis? What happens when you don't have a hypothesis is, you tend to ramble around. Supposing if you don't have a hypothesis, you don't know what you're working on. I just have an idea that I'm working on junk food. I'll do anything that is based on junk food. Right? So it helps the researcher in delimiting the area of research. I will know what I'm working on. Right? So the researcher will be on the right track if there is a hypothesis that has been formulated. And the same hypothesis in the form of a question is actually called as a research question. The next is research design. Research design is actually a very important step because here is where you actually outline the whole of your research. For example, the data collection tools. How will I collect my data? How will I analyze my data? Who will be my sample? How will I be selecting my sample? What will be my sample size? Everything comes under research design. You're formulating the research design means you're outlining the whole of your research. So there are few things which you have to take into consideration. Probably the money availability. How much money do I have in hand to conduct the research? What is the time that I have in hand? By when should I finish my research? By when should I finish collecting my data? Alright. The availability of the skills of the researcher. For example, if I want to use an interview as a data collection tool, I must be versatile in interviewing. I must have sufficient interviewing skills. Alright. If I want to use a questionnaire, what are the means by which I will be using the questionnaire? What are the means by which I will be collecting data? Will I be sending it by email? Will I be going in person? That is the means of collecting data. The next is sampling. Sampling is an entirely different section. We will deal with it in detail. Next is data collection. As I already told you, how am I going to collect my data? How am I going to go about with the whole of the process? Right. The next is determining the sample design. Now, imagine I am working on video games. Alright, video games. So, a lot of people in the whole of the world play video games. PUBG, Candy Crush, a lot of them play video games. So, all people in the world playing video games form a part of the universe. They are called the population because everybody stands a chance to be a part of my research. But you get that it is impossible to conduct research on everybody playing video games, right? So, it is not possible. Therefore, the researcher selects a particular group which is a representative of the population, and that is called as the sample. Okay. So, items selected for the research technically constitute what is called as the sample, and there are different types of sampling. We will deal with that in detail. The next is collecting data. Two types of data, primary data and secondary data. Primary data is data which you collect, the first hand information which you collect in the form of experiments or surveys, alright. And there are different tools using which you can collect data. Up on your slide you have questionnaires, interviews, schedules, observations, you can use case studies. There are a lot of data collection tools. The next is execution of the project. Now, you have everything in place, your data collection tools, you have everything, you have collected, you know how to collect data, you know how to go about with it. The next is execution. You actually work according to your plan, alright. Only if the execution is on correct lines will you get data which is reliable and also which is dependable, alright. The next is analysis of data. You have already collected data, and now you need to analyze the data which you have collected. There are three basic steps or other types in which you analyze data. The first is coding. Say I found out how many people eat samosas, puffs and a lot more, and already it's snacks time, so I am picking up this example. Imagine you have that data with you. So, you know this person eats samosa, this person eats puff and whatever. You have to code all that data in the form of symbols. Supposing if you give 1 for the person eating samosas, you give a star for the person eating puffs, you give something else for the person eating something, alright. So, that is called as coding, where the data is transformed into symbols that can be tabulated and counted. So, now at the end of your coding process, if I come and ask you how many people eat samosas, you will just have to count the number of ones you have and say how many people eat samosas, alright. The next is editing. Editing comes in place when you have a lot of open-ended questions in your questionnaire, or you have fillers in an interview. For example, people say something but then you don't hear it properly, or people don't write the spelling correctly. So, you have minute mistakes which the people make while responding to your questionnaire or your interview or anything else. So, you have to edit those mistakes. So, that is called as editing, alright. The next is tabulation. As I already told you, you have transformed the whole of your data in the form of symbols. Now, these symbols need to be put in the form of tables, and that is called as tabulation, okay. The next is hypothesis testing. Hypothesis, as I already told you, have an assumption, and the data is tested many times against the hypothesis, alright. You have a hypothesis. Now, if I say does using portfolio assessment have an impact on students learning mathematics, for example, then you actually have the hypothesis. Yes, it does help students in learning mathematics, or it doesn't help students learning mathematics. But then you have a lot of statistical tools. For example, regression analysis, correlational analysis, chi-square test, t-test, f-test, z-test, and a lot more, against using which you can test the data against the hypothesis. Alright, so that is called as hypothesis testing. And when you test the hypothesis a number of times, you will arrive at generalizations, and these generalizations later become theories. Alright, the hypothesis is tested several times and you will arrive at generalizations which can be called a theory. Alright, the next is preparation of report, or rather the thesis writing stage, which is actually a very meticulously done stage in the whole of the research process. Alright, so this could be an important question, and I recommend that all of you know all the parts in a thesis, starting from the title page till the appendices, what is necessary, what is not necessary, what is a mandatory part in a thesis. I suggest that all of you somehow learn up all those things. But then primarily the layout is, you have preliminary pages. Preliminary pages probably include the index page, the acknowledgement and all that. The main text is your 5 to 6 chapters. Right? The end matter is again your bibliography, references, works cited, however you want to call it. But however, there are also differences among the three, and also you can have your appendices. So they constitute what is called as the end matter. So this is the end of the first part of the presentation. But then we'll also have to look at data collection tools and sampling. Alright, so first now we'll take up data collection tools. So what are the various data collection tools? So, and as I already told you, we'll be talking about data collection tools, the primary data collection tools, and not the secondary data collection tools, because the secondary data collection tools include journals, articles, or anything that has already been worked out. Alright, so data collection tools. The first is a questionnaire. Alright, questionnaire is the most popular and most common type of data collection, and even during this time of lockdown we receive a lot of messages saying answer this questionnaire, that questionnaire and all that. So it is a very common form of collecting data. You know why? It's because it is cost effective, alright, and it is also free from the bias of the interviewer. Just a minute. Alright, it is cost effective, and it is also free from the bias of the interviewer, in the sense that there is no person who is going to put the words into your mouth because you are alone when you are filling the questionnaire. That doesn't happen in an interview. Alright, and also low return rate of the questionnaire means as a researcher, even I have sent so many questionnaires to a lot of teachers, but honestly speaking, a lot of them don't return those questionnaires. Alright, so there is always the threat of a low return rate. People don't fill your questionnaire just like that. They tell, we need time, we need this, we need that. Alright, so that is why a questionnaire, even though is preferred, but it is still a time taking process. Alright, and also the problem is a questionnaire can be used only for educated respondents. You can't use a questionnaire for every Tom, Dick and Harry, because it can be used only by people who can read and write. Alright, up on your slide is an image of WhatsApp. So every time I make a WhatsApp call, a video call or anything like that, you have that particular thing saying rate this call. Although it was a bad call, every time it asks you for rate this call on a scale, and then you have 5 stars. That is a form of a questionnaire. A questionnaire is also used to get feedback. Alright, from the respondents. It is also used to get feedback from the respondents. The next is pilot study. What is pilot study? Pilot study is when you have a questionnaire, it is ready, it is all done, and then you want to find out if the questionnaire has mistakes, and then if there are mistakes you need to rectify them. So that is done using pilot study. You collect some 5 to 10 people, give them the questionnaire, administer the questionnaire, and then you find out what the flaws in your questionnaire are, you rectify them, then that is called as pilot study. Alright. Then there are two types of questionnaires. These are broad classifications again. There are still more classifications, however. There are two broad classifications, closed-ended questionnaires and open-ended questionnaires. Closed-ended questionnaires, like the one which is up on your slide now, it is an example of a closed-ended questionnaire because you don't get to answer anything in detail or even in 2-3 lines. Alright, you just have to say yes, no, yes, no, no, yes, yes, no. Alright. So, closed-ended questions are that which don't seek a response from the respondents, however, in the form of words. Open-ended questions are where you will have to write responses. Okay. Supposing if you have a question in your questionnaire that asks you, is teacher training a part of your college or the training which you receive from college? If so, mention what are they. People just say yes, no, but if they say yes, they have to mention what are the various types of trainings which they receive from their management. Alright. The next is types of questions. What are the various types of questions that could be asked? Now, every time I go to Domino's, after finishing a good amount of eating pizza and all that, they send me a link saying, now rate your experience with Domino's. And then it has a series of questions. Now, how was the food? How was the hospitality? How was the cleanliness in the restaurant or anything like that? They give me a scale, 1 to 10. I have to say if it is 10 or 5 or 4 or 3. If I say it is 10, then it means that I had an excellent experience with Domino's. Alright. So that is called as a rating scale. You rate your experiences or you rate anything that is asked. Alright. The next is a ranking scale. Ranking scale, if I want to find out if you prefer to use WhatsApp, Instagram, Twitter or any site like that. And if you say Instagram number 1, WhatsApp number 2, it means that you prefer using Instagram more than using WhatsApp. Alright. So that is called as a ranking scale where you rank the various parameters. Alright. The next is the Likert scale. Likert scale is the most commonly used kind of closed-ended questionnaire type of questions. Alright. This is where you have the 5 options: always, never, rarely, sometimes, all those things, or agree, strongly disagree, partially disagree and all those things. Alright. So that is called as the Likert scale. Moving on, the next is interview. Yeah. Now, interview is an act of turn taking. Now, this is my favorite example in the whole of the presentation. Imagine there is a cricket match that is going to start. You have the toss and then you have 2 captains. One, probably the winning captain, most often Mahendra Singh Dhoni. And then you have another captain. After the toss, the person who is the MC, he asks Dhoni to come forward and speak. Now, right, the interviews can be divided into many types. The first is single interview and multiple interview. When you interview a person for the first time and then leave it there, then that is a single interview. Multiple interview, today you interview a person, after 2 months you interview the same person to find out if anything has changed, then that is called as a multiple interview. The next is a structured interview and an unstructured interview. Structured interview is when, suppose Dhoni is there and then the person is asking him questions and he asks him questions like, what is it, what is your team, have you made changes in your team or anything like that. And then our captain says, yes, we have made few changes because this person is out with an injury. And then what will be the response of the person asking the question? He will immediately, he will not ask the second question which is there on the list. He will ask a question related to the injury. Now, how did the injury happen or what was it? And things like that. So that is called as a semi-structured interview. Now, if the person is going to ask the same questions as it is, then it is called as a structured interview. Supposing if I am a fan and I have to go and ask Dhoni few questions, I'll ask whatever I feel like asking. So, in that case, it is an unstructured interview. I might not have an interview checklist. These are the questions that I should ask, might not be there. Then, in that case, it is called as an unstructured interview. But in cases where you have a set of questions, you ask them, then that person says something else, you're distracted, you ask another question related to the response which that person gave, then that is called as a semi-structured interview. Alright, hope that's clear. The next is focus group interview. Focus group interview is when, supposing if you have to interview 100 teachers, you can't interview all 100 teachers because you don't have the time to do that. Now, you divide the teachers into groups of 6 or 7, maximum of 12 in each group. And then you conduct interview for each group. Then that is called as a focus group interview. But then one problem which is there inherent in a focus group interview is that you will not be able to associate the response with the respondent. You will not be able to know who said what, because there are a lot of people who are talking at the same time. You will not be able to attribute a particular response to the same respondent. Alright. The next is the telephonic interview. This is a very convenient and in vogue form of data collection, which is called as telephonic interview, where you just call the person up and then have an interview and then it is done. The next is observation. Observation, as I already told you, in place of an ethnographic research or a field research, it is very important. It is a systematic description of events, behavior, artifacts and everything which is in a particular social setting. Now, before starting an observation, what are you supposed to keep in mind? What am I observing, or what should I be observing? How should I be observing? Do I have an observation template? Do I have to stick to the template? How accurate is the template, or how accurate is my observation? Alright? Because observation might be biased at times. Alright? Again, observation is divided into a number of types. I have classified them into groups of 2 because they are dichotomies. The first is structured observation and unstructured observation. Structured observation, similar to a structured interview and an unstructured interview, is when you actually have an observation template, and based on the template you are going to observe. Then that is a structured interview. It is an unstructured interview when you do not have an observation. You just enter some random place and observe everything that you find, or probably whatever you think is necessary. Then that is called as unstructured observation. The next is participant observation and non-participant observation. Participant observation is when on your slide you have a picture that shows non-participant observation, because there are actually 3 people who are talking and 1 people who is just observing. Alright. Then that is non-participant observation, because you are not a part of the group which you are observing. Then participant observation is when this person who is there on the corner, if he enters the discussion of the group, and then if they all are going to discuss, and if he is going to still observe, then he is a participant observer. Alright. Participant observation is generally, for example, if you have to say, I belong to the low income group. Say I belong to the low income group, and if I have to observe people belonging to the low income group, then in that case I am a participant observer, because I am myself a member in the group which I am observing. Alright. The next is controlled observation and non-controlled observation. Controlled observation, this is, you can relate this well with medicine. People say he is under observation. What does it mean? He is being observed. He is isolated from everybody, and then he is observed under controlled setup. Alright. He is isolated and he is being observed. It is a controlled observation. When you as a researcher are in control of the various parameters that could possibly affect the observation, in that case it is called as a controlled observation. The next is non-controlled observation. Non-controlled observation is when you have no say in the environment. It is just there and you just observe it. For example, if you are working on tribal people, as I already told you, you will have to visit the tribal people. It is not under your control. The environment, the ambience, nothing is under your control. You just observe as it exists. So that is called as non-controlled observation. The next is covert observation and overt observation. The first is covert observation. Imagine I am a researcher. I don't tell you, you are a part of the observation, you are a part of the team which I am observing. I don't tell you I am observing you, but I still observe you. Then that is covert observation. Where the researcher does not disclose his identity or being an observer is called as a covert observation. Supposing in another observation, I am a researcher, I come up to you and I say, I am going to observe you, hey look, I am going to observe you, do whatever you want now. And then if you are going to observe, then that is called as an overt observation, because the people whom you are observing are aware of the fact that he or she is being observed. Right? The next is schedule. There is not much difference between a schedule and a questionnaire. The only thing is that questionnaire is filled by the respondents themselves, but then a schedule is filled by a worker or probably a deputant whom you depute in order to collect data for you. Alright. This is quite expensive because you have to pay each of the enumerators who are collecting the responses. This means to say that people give the responses, there is a person who is listening, and then the person who is listening will write down those responses. Alright, that is all that has to do with schedules. The difficulty is that it might cost you more than administering a questionnaire because it is expensive and you have to pay the enumerators who are traveling around for you. Alright. Next is the case study method. Case study method is when you find out individual factors, like you work on individuals, for example an institution or a group of people or a person or an individual, and you find out what happens, or whether you can even have two individuals, compare these two individuals and find out. All that comes under a case study method. But the problem is that you assume that these results can be generalized. There is an assumption lying at the back that there is uniformity in nature. Now, the same way I behave, alright, I behave might not be the same way in which another person might behave. But the general assumption is that all teenagers or all people behave in the same way, alright. So, that is one drawback because these results are not generalizable enough, alright, and it is also it also consumes more time and more energy because you have only one person and you have to observe everything that is related to that one person. Alright. Hope it is not becoming very difficult, or hope it's not very difficult to understand. We have just one more thing to go, that is sampling, and I'm finishing all of this because sampling is also a very important topic as far as your NET examination is concerned. And there is a question every time in almost all the shifts regarding types of research is one important thing, and then data collection is another important thing, and you could also have questions based on research process and also on sampling. Apart from this, you will also need to concentrate on ICT and research, and also thesis writing. As I already told you, you need to know the various parts of research, the MLA, the APA, of course the abbreviations. They ask from simple questions to complicated questions, but then I think sampling techniques, now if you get a hang of the whole thing, it will be very helpful in your examinations. We will also be working out questions. All the participants who have registered will actually be getting tests on an everyday basis. So, if you want, you can go in for a break for 2 to 3 minutes, just so that you don't miss out on the important points, and even I'll drink water. Okay. Okay, shall we begin? Doubts, you just mark them. Doubts. You just mark them, I will answer them at the end. Okay. Now, back to business. Types of sampling. Sampling is basically divided into two types: probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Probability sampling, as I already told you, you should be remembering the concepts of population and sample. Probability sampling is when every person in the population stands a chance to be a person, or stands a chance to belong to the sample in which you are conducting the research. Then that is called as probability sampling. It is technically based on the law of probability, meaning to say that there are people, everybody, means there are 100 people, the 9th person or the 10th person or the 99th person, anybody can be a part of the sample, then that is called as probability sampling. Alright. The next is non-probability sampling. Non-probability sampling is when not everybody can be a part of the research because there are certain constraints. We will look at them in detail. Now moving on to the types of probability sampling. I have only picked up the types, or rather the most oft asked questions. Alright, I have picked up from the point of view of the examination. However, there are many of these types of samples. If you are very interested, or if you have genuine interest like that of a researcher, you can actually check out each of them. But for now, I will just give you pictorial representations of the samples as far as possible. So the first is simple random sampling, systematic random sampling, stratified random sampling, cluster sampling, area sampling. The first is simple random sampling. Now look at the figure closely. Alright. You have 12 participants, and these participants will come till the end, I will tell you. You have 12 participants, and these 12 participants, out of the 12 participants, you have picked out 2, 5, 8, 10 at random. There is no rhyme or reason why you have picked up 2 or 5 or 8 or 10. Alright. So that is called as simple random sampling. How is this generally done? This is generally done by picking up chits from a hat. You write these numbers on a hat, inside a hat, you put them inside a hat, and then you pick up numbers. So that is simple random sampling. It is done at random, simply at random. Alright. The next is systematic random sampling. So systematic means it has some methodology. Alright. Now you might as well say that it is method in madness. Alright. So it is systematic random sampling. It is systematic and it is also random at the same time. For example, I have to pick up in multiples of 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. If I pick out samples in that order, then it is systematic random sampling. Although it is random, it is still based on some set pattern. Alright. I am picking up in multiples of 3. After 3 I pick up 6. I do not pick up 5. It is based on systematic, it is systematic selection, but still it is random. Alright. So in the example which is up on your slide, you have samples which are selected for every third person. For example, you select 2 and then you leave out 2 people, you select the third, you leave out 2 people, you select the third, you leave out 2 third, you leave out 2 third. So that is the pattern. Alright. So that is called as systematic random sampling. The next is stratified random sampling. Supposing if you have 12, throughout we have been having 12, so we have 12 participants, and you divide these participants into strata or rather levels. For example, 1, 10, 12 in one strata, 2, 4, 6 in another strata, 7, 8, 11 in another, 3, 5, 9 in another. Alright, you have divided the 12 participants or your population into strata. Alright, and from each strata you pick up certain amounts. Alright, here you have picked out 10, 2, 8, 5 at random. Alright, so that is called as stratified random sampling. You divide them based on strata and then pick out at random. Alright. The next is cluster sampling. Cluster sampling is when you have 12, the population, the count is 12, you divide them into clusters. Cluster 1 has 1 and 2, cluster 2 has 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8, 9 and 10, 11 and 12. So you have formed 6 clusters and you select the cluster as it is. Alright, unlike stratified, you select the whole of the cluster. Imagine 5, 6 is one cluster, 11, 12 is another cluster. You select both the clusters. So that is called as cluster sampling. And I have seen a lot of students coming up with doubts on what is the difference between stratified and cluster sampling. For them, there is another slide coming up. Cluster sampling is when you divide the population in the form of clusters and select the whole of the cluster. Is that clear? The next, stratified sampling on the other hand, is when you divide the population into strata and divide certain amounts from each of the strata. Alright. Hope that's clear. The next is area sampling. Now this is a screenshot from Google Maps. Now I am working on this particular area, say the area that's next to AG Hospital, the petrol bunk and Phillips Hospital and all that. So that is my area. Area sampling is generally based on geographical divisions, alright, and area sampling it might as well be a systematic random sampling. Say in case I select the third street in every area, or the first, the third, the fifth, the odd numbers, those areas, in that case it can be area sampling as well as systematic random sampling, alright. Now moving on to non-probability sampling, what are the most common types? Convenience sampling, snowball sampling, judgment sampling and quota sampling. First is convenience sampling. Convenience sampling is when it is done on the basis of the convenience of the researcher. What am I convenient with? What can I work with? Probably I cannot travel down south, so I eliminate that possibility of traveling down south. So I don't go there because it is not convenient to me. I live in Chennai, so I can only travel in and around Chennai. So that is called as convenience sampling, when it is based on the convenience of the researcher. The next is judgment sampling. Judgment sampling is when it is based on the discretion of the researcher. By discretion I mean to say that it will be good if this person is a part of my research. This person should be a part of my research. Then in that case it is based on the judgment. You can see the researcher, I mean he is the abstract researcher there. He is actually imagining, he is actually thinking of people who if a part of the research could be a better opportunity of getting good results, alright. Then in that case it is called as judgment sampling. The next is quota sampling. Quota sampling is when quota, as the nomenclature itself signifies, it is based on categories. For example, you have enrollment into colleges based on quota, sports quota and a lot more. So that when it is done based on quota, it is called as quota sampling. Next is snowball sampling. Snowball sampling, I have also given you the image of snowballing, the game snowballing. It is arranged, if you have played the game, you would know that it is arranged in an ascending order. It moves from 1, 3, 5 and like that. So snowball sampling is when you see the first one is closer. So it means to say that snowball sampling is when you have people whom you know based on the researcher's acquaintance. You have got yourself acquainted with few people, so they will be a part of your research, and this number increases, right? Now one person knows 3 other people, so they will be the next, and those 3 people know 5 other people, so they will be the next. So it progresses based on your acquaintances. So that is called as snowball sampling, alright. So thanks a lot for listening to all that which I said so far. Hope it was helpful, and looking forward to many more sessions with all of you like this. And I've also picked up few questions which you can try and answer, because they are actually based on what we discussed right now. Alright. So the next thing which we'll be talking about is a few previous year questions, not exactly all, but then I've picked up some 4 or 5, because of the time constraints I've picked up 4 or 5 which we can just look at. Alright. So let's get started. First question, I want all of you to also answer if you can, probably. The first question is up on your slide now. The style of writing a thesis and research article has to be dash. Creative in so far as diction is concerned, scientific in respect to language used, mechanical in so far as placement of figures and tables is concerned, variable in respect of referencing. Alright. Now, if you can answer. Alright. The question is up on your slide. Please try and answer these questions. I can see a lot of you saying B. Yes, B is the correct answer. And there is also a person who says it has to be mechanical. Now, as far as your tables and figures are concerned, they can be, the placement of tables and figures is left to the discretion of the researcher. There is no set rule that this table has to be here, that table has to be there. There is no such thing. But then, more than creativity, what is of utmost importance is scientific language. It is important that all theses go in a scientific proper language that is appropriate, alright. And thanks a lot for the right answers, but the answer is actually B. It means to say that scientific language is of utmost importance when you are writing your thesis, alright. Yeah, up on your slide is the second question. In which of the following research methods an empirico-inductive paradigm is involved? I have not told you about the empirico-inductive paradigm, but I was assuming that a lot of people know what is inductive and what is deductive. However, let me also explain in terms of research. Inductive is everything that is qualitative and deductive is most often quantitative. Okay. Now, the word empirico is not as important because empirico just means that it is verifiable, it is testable, but then inductive is of utmost importance because when it is inductive, it means that it is qualitative. When it is deductive, it means that it is quantitative. Now, please try and answer this question. You have various options also there, A, B, C, B, C, D. So, it is quite a longer question compared to the previous one. I can see that a lot of you are thinking. Now, in this case, I suggest that you go for the elimination options because you actually need to eliminate answers which could probably be quantitative in nature. I want you to say if it is 1, 2, 3 or 4, right? Alright, the correct answer is 3, A, B and D. It's probably because I have not explained ex post facto method. Ex post facto method is you find out or if you weigh the consequences of a particular situation after everything is done. Now imagine after COVID-19, if I have to come up and say what has COVID-19 done, how are we feeling the repercussions of COVID-19 or something like that, then that is ex post facto research because I am aiming to find the effects of COVID-19 after the event is actually over, alright. So, ex post facto research, it is kind of quantitative because after it is done, you weighing down the effects of the repercussions. Your answer is A, B and D. This is because A is ethnographic. Ethnographic, as I already told you, you are studying the culture. You are studying the reasons why people behave in certain ways. You are studying the culture, the behavior, everything with regard to the context in which it is happening. So, that tends to be more qualitative, alright. And also case study method. A case study method, it can't be quantified. You can't say a teenager is arrogant. I mean, you can't quantify it. You can't say arrogant, 1 arrogant, 2 arrogant. It is not quantifiable, alright. So, case study research, case study method is also inductive and also a narrative method. Narrative, as you can understand from the term itself, is narrative and it is not quantitative. Is that fine? An experimental method, as I already told you, it involves pre-test scores and post-test scores. You have two groups, experimental group and the control group. You compare their scores, you compare the performance, you compare pre-test, post-test of these two groups in an experimental method. So, obviously, it is going to be both quantitative and qualitative, if not only qualitative, alright. The next question which is up on your slide now, this is actually this involves a lot of common sense. You just have to think and nothing else. A researcher intends to make use of ICT in his or her research. What considerations should weigh most in such a decision? First, appropriateness of the tool used, cost involved in procuring it, availability of tools in the department where research is to be taken, willingness of his or her supervisor to offer help, the company from which the ICT equipment has been procured. Alright. Alright. Again, for such questions, you will also have the similar type of questions in teaching aptitude also. Those questions will also be somewhat longer, but not longer. They are somewhat longer compared to the other questions where you have just 4 options. Here you have 5 to 6 options and you have to just eliminate them. Just eliminate the one which you feel are not going to play a role while selecting ICT in his or her research. Yes. Kritika, you have the right answer. The answer is option 1, A, B and C. Now, if you look at the options, we have to eliminate D and E. Alright. Now, there is an important question that needs to be answered. ICT is Information and Communications Technology. There is a person who has asked it. Alright. Yeah, Manjushri, ICT is nothing but Information and Communications Technology. Okay. For example, if I have to explain this question to you, I would say that ICT is like, if I have to use Google Forms for my research, now what are the things that I should take into consideration before making my decision? Alright. So, I will eliminate D and E first, because whether the supervisor is willing or not willing to use ICT doesn't matter, because it is you who are going to pursue research. And what is more important is the appropriateness of the tool used. Will this tool suffice the need of my research? Is it cost effective? Will I be able to procure this tool? Or the availability of tools in the department where the research is to be undertaken. Do people where I am going to administer the questionnaire, do they have Google Forms? Do they have access to Google? Alright, so such things are what you will have to consider, and not the willingness of your supervisor. Might be in a few cases you will have to, but then it is generally not a criteria. The willingness of the supervisor doesn't matter as much as the researcher, and also the company from which the ICT equipment has been procured. Imagine you using a projector in your class. Whether you've used the projector from the next class, or you bought your projector, or if the projector is from some wholesale shop, it doesn't matter. It is just that you have to use the tool, alright. That is why we need to eliminate option E. Once you eliminate option E, you can see for yourself that you have already eliminated 3 options there, alright. So, the answer that remains is option 1. The next is, this is a question that I have been repeating over and over again while I was talking to you about action research. Hope everybody gives the correct answer, alright. In an intervention based action research process, which of the following is the usually recommended sequence? Alright. Plan, act, observe, reflect. Observe, plan, act and reflect. Reflect, act, plan and observe. Observe, act, reflect and plan. I also told you the keyword of PAOR for you to remember it easily. Plan, act, observe and reflect. And also the figure which was there, I also had the image on the slide. You identify the problem and then you plan, you act and implement your plan, you observe the results and then reflect on what the results are. Alright, so option 1 is the correct answer. I see a lot of you with the correct answers. Yes, the answer is 1. So, thanks a lot all of you. Hope I've done justice, some justice to research aptitude, and hope it will help a lot of you in answering research aptitude questions. Now, we'll move on to the second session, reasoning. I'll pick up the doubts which you have actually asked me, the comments from the comment section. I'll come with the doubts, I'll come back with the doubts at the end of the session, just so that we don't interrupt the flow of the whole session. Alright. Please take a 2 minutes quick break and then we'll be right back with reasoning. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Switch off the mic. Then what am I supposed to do? Now, is this the only question? Is this the only question? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, I'll take down these 2 questions. How are the questions say? Okay, I'll take down these questions. I'll end the question for this folder.
Ma'am, could you explain applied and conceptual research again? Can explain applied and conceptual research. Is conceptual research more like theoretical?
Yaar get a question.
First one வந்து அம்மு மஞ்சுஸ்ரீ, செகண்ட் ஒன் வந்து கிருத்திகா சுப்ரமணியம்.
எப்படி நீ வந்து கமெண்ட்ஸ் கொடுத்த? தேங்க்ஸ்ண்ணா, கங்க்ராச்சுலேஷன்ஸ்ண்ணா. I'll try and answer these 2 questions. Alright, as far as the questions are concerned.
Can you please explain about ex post facto research once again?
Okay. So, we have 3 questions right now. The first is applied and conceptual research. Manjushri, she wants me to explain applied and conceptual research once more. Applied research is when you have already existing concepts or theories and you apply those concepts and theories to solve present day problems. Alright, that is applied research. You apply to solve present day problems. It is applied when you actually use past theories to explain present day problems. Alright, the next is conceptual more theoretical? Alright, conceptual research is obviously theoretical because you're working on concepts. Okay, it is research that is done on concepts. There is a concept, you work on the concept and you find out more about that particular concept. So it is more of a theory. Alright. The next is, can you please explain about ex post facto research once again? Yes, obviously I can. Kapil sir, ex post facto is nothing but when there is an event that has already occurred, and then you are going to study the aftermath of that event. For example, if I have to say demonetization. Demonetization was an event that took place in the past. It is over, it is done and over. But now if you were to find out the repercussions of demonetization today, then that is called as ex post facto research, because you are finding the present day consequences of a past event. Alright, so that is called as ex post facto research. The next question is, yeah, does exploratory research means to only discover something, or is it, right, that question. So to answer that question, I have already told you, exploratory research is nothing but a hypothesis development. You develop hypothesis in an exploratory research. It is not hypothesis testing. For example, if you can watch the video, it will be very good, because I have given you keywords which makes something exploratory in nature. For example, if I say what, how, so if I say how is the assessment system, then that is exploratory in nature, because you are not going to test any hypothesis. You don't assume that it is actually bad, but then you just want to find out how things are. In that case, it is exploratory in nature. Same is the case with what. What are the assessment practices? You're not going to say that this is bad or this is good, but you're just going to say what the various assessment practices are. Alright, so that is the difference between, that is what exploratory research actually is. But that is a contrast to experimental research. Experimental research is hypothesis testing. You know something will actually affect the control group or the experimental group, but that is not the case with exploratory research. You have a hypothesis, you just have to develop the hypothesis. Alright. Any other questions, you can ask them. I'll try and answer after the session on reasoning. Okay, thanks a lot. There.
Yeah.
Tell them to take a quick break of 2 minutes. Paper, pen ready.
Hello, hi, and welcome to the second part of this webinar presented by Aid Virtual. Let's take a quick break of 2 minutes and come back with a pen and a paper. Thank you. வேண்டாம் என் புக் அங்கே இருப்பாரு
நான் எங்க இருந்து கமெண்ட்ஸ் பார்த்து சொல்றது உனக்கு
டேக் தட்
laptop here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll come back. என்ன வேணும் உனக்கு? What do you want? Do you want anything?
எனக்கு ஒன்றும் வேண்டாம்க்கா.
That's all?
என் புக் எடு. என்னது?
You want a pen?
Okay.
That's all. You can keep this on this. You're not in the center. Not in the center. Alright, I think you're clear now. தண்ணி குடிச்சுக்கோ மூச்சு விட்டுக்கலாம்
பைக்கா என்னக்கா இல்லை இது வந்திருக்கான் போடுக்கா கேன் யூ ஸ்டார்ட் ஏதாவது கேளுக்கா என்னக்கா பண்ணிட்டு Okay, so let's start the second part of this webinar. Very happy to see you guys today after a jam-packed session of theory, analogies and question and answer session. Let's chill a little bit in this second session where it will be mostly practical and there is very little to actually memorize. Before jumping into the topic, let us see what paper 1 in NTA NET examination is all about. So the main objective is to assess the teaching and research capabilities of the candidates. The test aims at assessing the teaching and research aptitude as well. Candidates are expected to possess and exhibit cognitive abilities which include comprehension, analysis, evaluation, understanding the structure of arguments, deductive and inductive reasoning. The candidates are also expected to have a general awareness about teaching and learning processes in higher education system. Further, they should be aware of interaction between people, environment, natural resources and their impact on the quality of life. In NTA NET examination, there are 10 modules present in paper 1, namely teaching aptitude, research aptitude, communication, comprehension, mathematical reasoning, aptitude, logical reasoning, data interpretation, information and communication technology, people development and environment and higher education system. The structure is like this. There are these 10 modules and 5 questions each carrying 2 marks are to be set from each module. Excuse me. Coming to the syllabus of mathematical reasoning and aptitude. There are 6 major topics present in reasoning and they are as follows: number series, letter series, coding and decoding, blood relationships, direction and distance, mathematical aptitude. In this we will discuss the first 5 major topics, whereas the mathematical aptitude part will be covered in the webinar which is to come, which is based on data interpretation. So coming to the first major topic of our discussion here, number series. Questions on number series are prevalent in most of the exams. Almost 1 to 2 questions come in the exam from this topic. These questions are based on numerical sequences that follow a logical pattern, logical rule or pattern based on elementary arithmetic concepts. A particular series is given from which the pattern must be analyzed. You are then asked to predict the next number in the sequence following the same rule. There are some numbers missing or wrongly put in into the series of number and you need to identify or correct them. So coming to the approach of such problems of number series. The first step is to trying and analyzing the given pattern such as prime numbers, perfect squares, cubes, series of known numbers like mathematical progression, arithmetic progression, geometric progression, etc. Next, if you are unable to find the familiar number, calculate the difference between the given series elements. The first step is to analyze the given pattern. If you are not able to find familiar number, then calculate the difference, which is the sub step. Then observe the pattern in difference to see if they follow any regular pattern or known numbers like said above. If the numbers are growing slowly, it must be addition series or subtraction series. If the numbers are growing rapidly, it must be a square series, a cubic series or a multiplicative series. If the difference or sum doesn't have any particular pattern, it must be an alternative series. Now you need to find whether the series follow a complex pattern or not. Check for cases like multiplying the number and adding or subtracting a constant number from it to reach the pattern. Heads up, there is no defined way to solve number series. The ultimate trick is to identify the numbers in the series and proceed accordingly. So there is a question: how to identify common pattern in number series. First, what are the common patterns available? The common patterns available are arithmetic series, geometric sequence, prime numbers, squares or cubes, odd one out, complex series, cube roots and square roots, mixed pattern, and many more such things. In this we are familiar mostly with prime numbers, squares, cubes. If a sequence comes like 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, then we know that it is a prime number sequence and the next number is going to be 13. But let's discuss arithmetic series and geometric sequence in detail. So coming to the patterns asked in number series topics, arithmetic series. This could be of two types, in which the next term is obtained by adding or subtracting a constant number to its previous term. Common difference is the key here. For example, let's consider the numbers 4, 9, 14, 19. I repeat, the numbers 4, 9, 14, 19. Okay, as you would have guessed, the next number would be 24, because the common in the given series pattern is continued by adding 5 to the last number each time. So 4 plus 5 is 9, 9 plus 5 is 14, 14 plus 5 is 19, and 19 plus 5 will be 24. Thank you. And the next thing which we are going to see is arithmetic sequences. Furthermore, this could be mixed with arithmetic sequences with the differences of consecutive numbers themselves form an arithmetic series. For example, 1, 3, 6. Once more, 1, 3, 6. I know that in the first go, most of us would have not come up with the next number, but apply the second rule. That is, if you are not able to find a common pattern, then find the difference of it. So 3 minus 1 is 2 and 6 minus 3 is 3. So there is a pattern, there is an incrementation of 1 in the difference. So 2, 3 and the next number should be 4. So therefore the difference between the coming number and the previous number should be 4. Because we know the previous number is 6, so we add the 4 to it. So 6 plus 4 is 10. So the pattern is going to be 1, 3, 6 and 4. It's 1, 3, 6 and 10. Coming to geometric sequence is multiplying by the same value each time. For example, 1, 3, 9, 27. Once more, 1, 3, 9 and 27. So you would have known that the pattern is continued by multiplying by 3 each time. Okay. So I think that you guys are making note of whatever sequences you are talking about. So then coming to the tips and tricks for cracking number series for UGC NET examination. The first step is number series questions are mostly numbered in the series, are connected to each other. So when you identify the connection, solving the question becomes easier to you. Identify the pattern asked in the question. Once you identify the pattern, solving the questions would be much easier. Once you have identified the pattern, apply it to the number before or after the missing number in the series to get the answer. So I guess we would have learned number series properly. Now we will go to a question answer session where there are two questions. The first question is 165, 195, 255, 285, 345. Please work it out. 165, 195, 255, 285, 345. So guess the next number or find the next number to be accurate. We want answers only for the first question. A lot of them have come up with the right answer. Almost, I think everyone have come up with the right answer, which is 375. So for them who are not able to crack the problem, 165 plus 30 gives us 195. 195 plus 60 gives us 255. And again add a 30, 285. 60, 345. So 30, 60, 30, 60. Okay. And so when it comes here, we have to add 30 to it. And 345 plus 30 gives us 375. Let's continue answering the second question. 24, 60, 120, 210. What is the next answer? Second question answers. 24, 60, 120, 210, and the next number is what? I know it's a tricky question, it will take some time. Please work it out. Let's see who comes up with the right answer in the first go. It-
330. எழுதி காட்ட முடியாதுல்ல, தனியா ஒரு வேர்ட் ஃபைல் வேணா ஓபன் பண்ணிக்கேன்டா. யாரும் எல்லாம் ஏ தான்.
Sorry, everyone is answering it as A, but the answer is 336, which is B. So the logic is like this. So 2 into 3 into 4 gives us 24. 3 into 4 into 5 gives us 60. So likewise 4 into 5 into 6 gives 120, and 5 into 6 into 7 gives 210. And so in this logic, because now we have found out that this is a multiplicative series, the answer will be 6 into 7 into 8, which is 336. So the right answer is 336 here, and the right answer here is 375. Okay. இல்லை இப்போ போயிருக்கோம். Is that clear? If it is clear, write yes in the comment section. Okay, going to the next major topic, which is letter series. The reasoning session is almost every competitive examination contains questions on alphabet reasoning. In this topic, questions are asked relating to positions of English alphabets. This topic is very important from exam point of view. So you need to memorize the positions of the alphabets so that you can handle each and every question based on the topic. Let us discuss various types of alphabet reasoning. The alphabet. Please take the types of alphabet reasoning. The alphabet. Concept of agility. Positions of letters from right hand side. Finding the central symbol or letter or digit. Fill in the blank series. These are the types in which questions from letter series can arise. So coming to the first type, which is a very good technique, is the alphabet. The English alphabet contains 26 letters as given here. From A to M, the alphabet completes the first 13 letters, that is the first half, while the second half starts from 14th letter N and it ends at Z, which is the 26th letter. Coming to the concept of agility. The positions of alphabets can be remembered with the help of the simple concept. You can easily find out the position of any letter without much effort, but it is advisable that you learn the positions of different letters in the alphabet. E is 5th, J is in 10th position of the alphabet series, O is 15th, T is 20 and Y is 25. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, agility. For example, we are asked to find the 24th letter from the left side of the alphabet. We already know the 25th letter from the left hand side of the alphabet is Y. Now we need to find the letter before Y, and that is X. By using this simple method, we can easily find out the position of any letter in the alphabet. Memorizing the positions and sequence of letters is a basic to solve any questions of this type. So you should try to memorize these problems, positions. For this particular reason, you should practice agility. Coming to the next subdivision, which is positions of letters from RHS. Many a times we get questions in the test that asks us the position of a letter from the right hand side. Although we are in a habit of counting from the left hand side of the alphabet and not from the right hand side of the alphabet, we are discussing this by taking an example, and then we will make a mathematical formula out of it. Suppose there are a row of 8 persons in which a person is standing in the 5th from the left. Let's find out his or her position from the right hand side. So you can see that the person who is standing in the 5th from the left hand side is placed 4th from the right hand side. Suppose there are n persons, the order can be horizontal or vertical, and if the position of a person is given with the rth from the left, then his position from the right will be n plus 1 minus r. This is the formula to calculate if the right position is given and the number of elements present is also given. Okay. So to find the 5th position, to find the 5th guy from the left, what is his position on the right? We use the same formula and find. Like there are 8 items present here, so n is equal to 8, and we add 1 to it, and then what is the position of him in the left hand side? It is 5, therefore 8 plus 1, which is 9, minus 5, which is 4. So we know that he is 4th from the left hand side. Sorry for the handwriting. Okay. If we are dealing with the letters and we are given the position of any letter from either side, we need to add one more to the total number of letters, which is 26, and then subtract the position from left hand side to get its position from the right hand side. Okay. As you can see, the 10th letter from the left hand side, using agility we can know that it is J, E J O T Y. So 5, 10, so 10th element is J. So we know that it is J. So what is its position from the right hand side? We use the same formula, n, which is 26 plus 1 minus 10, which is 17. So J is 10th from the left hand side, whereas 17th from the right hand side. The same logic is applied if we have given an initial right position and we need to find the position from the left hand side, or we have given initial position from the top and we have to calculate position from the bottom, and vice versa. Going to the next topic, finding the central symbol or letter or digit. How to find the central symbol? Many a time the question asks the middle letter or digit in a sequence given. For example, find the middle letter between the 12th letter and the 20th letter from the left hand side of the alphabet. So we know that from agility we know that the 12th letter is M and the 20th letter is agility, which is the 13th letter is M and the 19th letter is S. So now we take everything into consideration: M, N, O, P, Q, R and S. So what is the middle letter in this? That's what the question is. So we know that the sum, you can see that there are 7 letters between these two positions. We know that the middle point of 7 items is 4 from either sides, whether counted from the right hand side or from the left hand side. It comes out to be P, which is the correct answer in this particular case. But so much effort is not needed in solving such problems, because there won't be this much time to solve these problems in the examination. Hardly you will be given 1 minute to solve these kind of problems, because we can this is the section where we can use less time compared to others, and we can gain this time in solving some other problem. Okay, so these reasoning problems should be solved say 1 minute per question. It should not take more than that. So in these type of questions, if the two different positions are given from the same side, that is either both are from the left hand side of the alphabet or both are from the right hand side of the alphabet, we can simply add up the two different positions from the same side, get their simple average, and thus the correct answer. Once more, take the left hand side the position of the leftmost and the rightmost, add both, divide by 2, take the average in short, and that will give you the middle element. In this particular case, the two positions are 12 and 20 from the left hand side of the alphabet. Adding and then averaging them, we get 16. That is 12 plus 20 is equal to 32, divided by 2 will give us 16. Recollecting the HOT formula that we discussed earlier, we come up with the letter which is 16th from left hand side after O. 15th position is O, so after O is P. The same process can be applied if we are given a case in which both the positions are counted from the right hand side of the alphabet. Remember, the answer we get will be the same from both the sides. Coming to the last and final subsection of letter series, fill in the blank series. So these type of questions consist of small letters which follow a specific pattern or series. Some spaces are left blank in between the series given. We have to fill in the blanks from given options to make a pattern. This can be clearly explained by this illustration: PQ space space, QPP space space, QPQ space. So there are 4 options. So in order to solve these kind of series, we should fill in the blanks by taking each option one by one and see where it forms a logical pattern. When you try to fill the first option, it becomes PQPP, QPPPPP, QP. It does not ring any bells to me. So it does not result in any particular logical pattern. If you fill the second option, you get PQP, 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 PQP. So it has been separated by slash symbol for your better understanding. Now this becomes a pattern of writing PQP again and continuously. So the second option becomes the correct answer to this given questions. Now let us solve a problem which is proper number series and one enough fill in the blank series. Going to the question and answer session. Answering the first question: GKF, IPC, LTY, PWT, UYN. What is the next answer in the letter series? We need answers for the first question. I repeat: GKF, IPC, LTY, PWT, UYN. What is the next? Okay, there has been one answer stating that it is 2. Mohan Raj sir have given this. Okay, Narayana KC had also answered it as B. Flora Jemi had answered it as A. Akatya Narul 2. Amudi Gurumurthy A. Kritika Subramaniam A, Roshini Balasubramaniam 1, which is Kritika Balasubramaniam D and Roshini Balasubramaniam A. Okay, so Ammu Manjushri and Kritika Subramaniam, congratulations, you got the correct answer, which is D. The answer is AZG. I'll explain it later how the answer came. Now moving to the second question, I need answers for the second question. Come on. A B B space B A space A space B A B space A B A. I repeat, ABB space BA space A space BAB space ABA. Okay, people have come up with the right answer every time. I think the question was really easy. I should have given the option as D, fourth option, so that you would have worked out all the previous options and you would have got back to A. The correct answer is A, and congratulations to all who have cracked that. Okay, so I think this is quite simple. ABB, substituting ABBA in the blanks, we find ABBA, BAAB, ABBA, BAAB. Okay, so that gives a proper series. And okay, for all those who have made the mistake in the second question, let's go back to the previous slide where we talked about this fill in the blank series. Take each and every option and substitute and see whether it gives any meaningful sequence. The people who have answered it as D and B, if you can please give the series, which the pattern which you saw in the series, if you can give that in the comment section, it will also be helpful. Thank you. Coming to the first question, GKF, IPC, LTY, PWT, UYN. There is a really good way of solving this problem where we need not have to waste so much time. Like, we can eliminate one possible, we can eliminate options. Like, when we see the first option, if by chance we find that the right answer, the first sequence follows a particular sequence and it came to X, So you are eliminating A, the first option and the fourth option, whereas you have B and C into consideration. So instead of attacking the first term or the second term, because if it turns out to be B, then again you need to find one more sequence to find the answer. So please see the options once and go with these options, like into which sequence will I see the next alphabet. Okay, so because this is the most useful one to me, this third letter in the series, we will go to F, C, Y, T and N. Okay, so as we know that it's going in the backward order, where F, D, F, E, D going back, and again C, B, A, Z, then Y. Okay, like F, then D, E is in between, then it goes to C, then B, A, Z is in between, then it goes to Y, and from Y there is X, W, V, U comes to T, and S, R, Q, P, O comes to N. So we know that in this step it jumped twice, in this step it jumped thrice, here 4 times, here 5, and we know that it has to jump 6 times backward or to the right hand side of the alphabet. So we know N, so M, L, K, J, I, H, M, N, O, P, okay, M, L, K, J, I, H, and the next is G. Where is G present here? It's here. Right answer is D. Is everyone clear? Naka?
Yeah, you can continue. She was just asking, was explaining, you can continue.
Okay, coming to the third topic which we are going to discuss, which is coding decoding. So as we know, coding decoding is a very interesting topic. It deals with cryptography. The history of cryptography goes back to the times of Julius Caesar, where we would have known Caesar cipher, where each and every alphabet is added with a key of 3. Like if A is there, A is the letter A is encoded as D, B is encoded as E, and so on and so forth. So that if by the time the messenger goes from one country to one place to another place, if there is a third party intervention, then the person does not gain anything from that message unless and otherwise he has the key for it. Okay, so coding is a method of transmitting a message between the sender and the receiver without a third person knowing it. Before transmitting, the data is encoded and at receiver side the data is decoded in order to obtain an original data by determining common keys in encoded data. Okay. So coming to the approach of how to approach these problems on coding decoding. So observe alphabets or numbers given in the code keenly. Find the sequence if Find the sequence it follows, whether it is ascending or descending. Detect the rule in which the alphabets, numbers or words follow. Fill the appropriate letter, number or word in the blank given. So there are various types on which coding and decoding are classified. The 4 major types are letter coding, substitution, mixed letter coding and mixed number coding. Coming to letter coding. In this type, the real alphabets in a word are replaced by certain other alphabets according to the specific rule to form its code. It's same as Caesar cipher, where here the example, the key is 1. The candidate is required to detect the common rule and answer the questions accordingly. For example, in a certain code, coding coding is written as DPEJOH. How will decoding DECODING be written in that code? Okay. So the explanation goes as follows. Compare the first letter of coding, which is C, with the encoded letter, which is D. So there is a gap of 1. Okay, and the same follows, like O's next letter is P, D's next letter is E, I, J, N, O, G, H. So this was the pattern or the rule which was used for coding. So now for decoding or for coding decoding, we will be using the same rule. Like D will be coded as E, E will be coded as F, C will be coded as D, and the other letters follow. And so we get E, F, D, P, E, J, O, H. That is letter coding. Coming to substitution. In this section, object names are substituted with different object names. We should carefully trace the substitution and answer the given question. For example, if white is called blue, blue is called red, red is called yellow, yellow is called green, green is called black, black is called violet, and violet is called orange, what would be the color of human blood? It's a very interesting question. The color of human blood is red, as all of us know, and as it is given that red is called yellow in the question, so the color of human blood is yellow, and the correct answer is option 3. That's how substitution works. Coming to mixed letter coding. In mixed letter coding type of questions, 3 or 4 complete messages are given in the coded language, and the code for a particular word is asked. To analyze such codes, any 2 messages bearing a common word are picked up. The common code word will mean that word. Proceeding similarly, by picking up all possible combinations of 2, the entire message can be analyzed. For example, in a certain code language, Podna Jok means very bright boy. Tam nu pod, the boy comes, nu per ton, keep the doll, jok ton su means very good boy, good doll. Okay, it's a very murky example. Which of the following means bright in the same code language? So how to crack this? Explanation goes as follows. Find the statements, like say A and B, or the statements 1 and 2, where the common word is boy. And what is the common word in the coded language? The common word is POD, pod. So we know that the common code word is pod and the common word is boy. So pod stands for boy. Okay, take 2 more statements. Say statements 1 and 4. So in 1 and 4, the common words are very, VERY, very. So what is common in the coded language? Pod no jack and jok ton su, it is jok. So JOC stands for very. So coming to the first line, where we want to find what is bright, we know that very is jok and boy is pod. So bright is na. Simple, right? That's how we encode it. That's how we find the word. Coming to the next, which is mixed number coding. In this type of questions, it is same like the mixed letter coding, but instead of letters we use numbers. A few groups of numbers, each coding in a certain short message are given. Through a comparison of given coded messages, taking 2 at a time, the candidate is required to find the number code for each word and then formulate the code for the message given. So for example, in a certain code, 786 means study very hard, 958 means hard work pays, 6:45 study and work. In the first and second statements, the common word is hard and the common digit is 8. In the first and third statements, the common word is study and the common number is 6. Therefore, 8 means hard and 6 means study. They are asking which of the following is the code for very. So, 8 in the first statement, study very hard, study is 6 and hard is 8. Therefore, very comes to 7. That's how we code and decode things. Now we have a question and answer session. So please be ready with your pen and papers. If LBAEHC is the code for bleach, then which of the following is coded as NBOLZKMH? Very easy question. I'd like to have answers in a jiffy. Okay, Ammo Manjushri had answered it first as D, and there are answers flowing inside. I think it's a very simple question. Everyone who had answered it as D, which is the right answer. Now please move on to the second question and answer it. Type ka
second question. Answer the second question.
If in a certain code COVET covet is written as FRYHW, which word could be coded as crane? CRANE. Please note the fact that they are asking which word would be coded as crane. Therefore, crane is a coded word which has been encoded. They are asking what is the plain text of it. Katka. Take the paper. Paper. Unpaper. Okay, sorry for the inconvenience. In the second question, we will be changing the options. Sorry for it. I have wrongly typed the break, repay, stink, and yes, so those are the right options. Sorry for the inconvenience. Please answer once more. Please answer once more. Please answer the question once more if you had even answered the question. The second question, we need answers for the second question. If in a certain code, covet COVET is written as FRYHW, which word would be coded as CRANE? Option A, quake. Option B, repay. Option C, stink. Option D, pearl. I cannot find any answers in the comment section. I think it's a tough problem, but it's actually not so tough to crack this problem.
B. Repay.
Okay. I made a mess. I made a mess. Please check the question once more. It's not crane, it's SHDUO. Sorry, I had messed up two questions and combined it to form a single question. And
Sir, could you explain it? Yes, Vidra.
relatable. இப்போ கண்டுபிடிச்சிடுவாங்க.
நான் சொல்லிடுறேன் ஆன்சர் இஸ் 4.
You don't take decisions. Sorry for the inconvenience, still we are waiting for the answers. If in a certain code, covet COVET is written as FRYHW, which word would be coded as SHDUO? Okay, there are various answers coming forward. A, B, D, anyone see? Okay. So majority have answered it correctly as D. Mohanraj, Kapil Raj, Ammu Manjushri, Agatya and Arul. Okay, all have answered it as D, and congratulations, you have cracked it. So answer is D. So coming to the explanation of the first question, it's very simple. Like we just interchange the two concurrent letters to form the code. So bleach, we just put L first and B next, A first and E next, H first and C next to do it. So therefore we just interchange the adjacent letters to form D, N, L, O, K, Z, H, M. Okay. So coming to the next question, which is covet, which is converted to F, R, Y, H, W. So we know that F, C to F, which is D, E, O to R, which is M and O, P, Q, and then R, V, T, U, V, W, X, and then Y. So it follows a pattern of plus 2. Because we know that this is the coded thing, coded answer, we have to minus 2 from each and every letter as a key to get back the original word. So the original word should have been S. So P, E, F, G, H, A, B, C, D, R, S, T, U, and L, M, N, and O. Okay. So with this we have completed the third major part of reasoning, which is coding decoding. Coming to the fourth session, which is blood relationships. This topic is a scoring one if you are smooth with the understanding of family relations and family tree. Otherwise it can prove to be messy, confusing and time consuming. In recent times we are most likely being detached with our family members and most live in nuclear families, unlike in past times where the concept of joint families was an apparent part of our lifestyle. Thus most of us hardly possess the idea of how family relations are intertwined and mixed up and how the branches flow through the family. Therefore, it is necessary to have a knowledge about the relation to solve the question related to the relations. The relationships are given in the table below. I assume that you have a very good knowledge on this, and we will be moving on. If there are anyone who don't know the relations, I request them to pause this video and take a look at the given table. So we have discussed the terms, which is brother, sister, maternal uncle, paternal uncle, aunt, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, father-in-law, mother-in-law, nephew, niece, cousin, grandfather, grandmother, great-grandfather, great-grandmother. Okay. So coming to the facts to remember, generations. There are minus 2 generation, minus 1 generation, plus 1 generation and plus 2 generation. Minus 1 generation have our grandparents, minus 1 mother, father, brother, sister, brother-in-law, sister-in-law and cousin. Plus 1 have our progeny, which is son, daughter, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, nephew and niece, and plus 2 generation are our progeny's progeny, which is grandson and granddaughters. If the question is how is A related to B, then you must know the gender of A to answer the question. Without knowing A's gender, you cannot determine the relation from A to B. If a person is uncle or aunt to A is that person's nephew if A is male, or niece if A is female. So the gender of A is really important to determine the relation from A to B. Cousin is a common gender. That means that you can use this word for both male and female, and you can't come to a conclusion with it. Okay. based on statements and conversations. The questions are mostly asked in this category, that is based on statements and conversations. The question in this category are generally a dialogue or a conversation between two people and followed up with a question on the basis of the information provided. Given below are some examples like Ram said to Hari, the boy playing with football is the younger to the two brothers of the daughter of my father's wife. Then how the boy playing football is related to Ram. Okay, or pointing to a man in the photograph, a woman said, his brother's father is the only son of my grandfather. How is the woman related to the man in the photograph? Is he mother, aunt, sister, daughter, grandmother? These are the example questions which are mostly asked in the examination as blood relationships are concerned. Now let's solve such a problem with this. Okay, taking the first example into consideration, the boy playing with football is the younger of the two brothers of the daughter of my father's wife. Okay. So the approach you need to follow to solve these questions is called as backtracking. Backtracking means beginning with last information and proceed backward. For example, if it is given that he is the son of the mother of my grandfather's daughter, then we start with the last information provided, grandfather's daughter. Now grandfather's daughter means aunt. Now mother of grandfather's daughter means mother of my aunt, hence grandmother. Therefore son of my grandmother become either my father or uncle. Now let's try this technique in the example given below. The boy playing with football is the younger of two brothers of the daughter of my father's wife. Here is this last piece of information. Father's wife means Ram's mother. Ram, his father's wife, it has to be Ram's mother. Okay, daughter of Ram's mother, because we are backtracking. The boy playing football is the younger of two brothers of the daughter of my father's wife. Now we know that father's wife is mother, so now we go to the place where daughter of my father's wife, daughter of Ram's mother. Okay, so daughter of Ram's mother is his sister, is Ram's sister. Okay, now going back, younger brother of his sister, because is the younger of two brothers of the daughter. So younger brother of his sister will be Ram's younger brother. Okay, so in the first example, the boy playing with football is the younger of the two brothers of the daughter of my father's wife. Where then how is the boy playing football is related to Ram? The boy playing football is the younger brother to Ram, younger brother of Ram. Coming to the second example, pointing to the man in the photograph, a woman said, his brother's father is the only son of my grandmother. So in this case, the first backtracking syllable is only son of my grandfather, right? Yeah, only son of my grandfather. So it implies that it is the woman's father. Okay, and then his brother's father is the only son of my. So the man's brother's father means the man's father. So woman is man's sister. So the question was, how is the woman related to man in the photograph? So the option is option 3, which is the woman is the man's sister. Now there is a question and answers. Introducing a boy, a girl said, he is the son of the daughter of the father of my uncle. How is the boy related to the girl? I repeat, introducing a boy, a girl said, he is the son of the daughter of the father of my uncle. How is the boy related to the girl? Use backtracking method and find it and post the answers in the comment section. Okay, so many have come up with the correct answer, which is option A. So how can we find this? Giri, the girl said, he is the son of the daughter of the father of my uncle. So we know that here is the girl, and he is the son of the daughter of the father of my uncle. So she has an uncle. If she has an uncle, then it has to be from her mother or father, because mother or father's sibling is called an uncle. So we know that the girl has an uncle. He is the son of the daughter of the father of my uncle. So this guy is the father of her uncle. So obviously he has also had to be the father of mother and mother or father. He is the son of the daughter of the father of my uncle. So is the uncle. So is the father of my uncle. So the daughter of my grandfather. So he is the son of the daughter of my grandfather. So the daughter of my grandfather is my mother. Therefore, who will be the son? It will be the girl's brother. Okay. So this ends the fourth topic of our discussion, and the fifth topic is direction and distance, which will be covered as a YouTube video, which will be coming soon, in a day or two. Till then, whoever have been registered will be having assignments and assessments, and will be providing material for them, which will be PDFs of a 30-day plan, the PDFs of all the question papers, the links to all the previous year question papers, and also so much of material based on research aptitude and reasoning. Thank you. Now this ends reasoning. If you have any questions, you can ask. Nana, நீ answer பண்ணு.
கேளுடா எனி क्वेश्चंस ஏதாவது ஆன்சர் பண்ணுங்க. இல்ல நான் போய் ஆன்சர் பண்ணிட்டா டூ क्वेश्चंस. Hello everybody and welcome back. There were actually two questions on research aptitude. The first question was on philosophical research. What is philosophical research? As I already told you, philosophical research is basically based on philosophy and also the concepts of philosophers. For example, if I have to say, let's take this example. There is a researcher who works on two philosophers of probably the classical age or even earlier, say Aristotle and his teacher Socrates and that generation probably. Then if they are going to come up with new insights based on the philosophies of those philosophers, then that is philosophical research. And one most important thing about philosophical research is that it is qualitative in nature. It can never be quantitative. It is always qualitative in nature. The second question is from Tipu Sultan. What is null hypothesis? Yeah, null hypothesis predicts a negative relationship. Alright, if I have to say, it predicts a negative relationship between the variables. For example, let's consider the research question is as follows actually. does smoking cause cancer? We all know that smoking causes cancer. So, even if a person is going to conduct a research on does smoking cause cancer, the result would be yes, smoking causes cancer. But the null hypothesis for that particular research is smoking does not cause cancer, because it predicts a negative relationship between smoking and cancer. Okay, these two are variables and it predicts a negative relationship. It says no. So, therefore, that is null hypothesis. And also remember that null hypothesis is a hypothesis that gets rejected at the end of your research. For example, in the above research, if I were to say that a research was on does smoking cause cancer, then it means to say that smoking causes cancer is a universal truth. And it is obvious that smoking does not cause cancer, which is the null hypothesis, will get rejected. Alright. So, that is null hypothesis. A hypothesis that gets rejected at the end of the research study is called as null hypothesis. Okay. Yes, Ammu Manjushri, for your question, answer for your question is that inductive is qualitative and deductive is quantitative. This is for you to remember, just so that you don't confuse when they ask inductive reasoning or deductive reasoning and things like that. Okay. But then for reasoning it is different. For reasoning, inductive and deductive are different. That will be dealing with inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning when we talk about logical reasoning, which will be a part of the coming up webinars. Alright. So, we have planned the next webinar for 15th of May. So, all those who are interested can join. We will send the flyer and also the link for registration. If you have any other questions or doubts or queries or any comments or any suggestions, you can give them in the comment section. Hope it was useful for all NET-JRF aspirants, and thanks a lot for joining us. Are there any questions? Any comments or anything? Comments or any suggestions, you can leave them in the comments below. Thank you. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll end this stream right now and we'll get back later on. Thank you. Thanks a lot.